Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Talkin Kop. It is Monday, the 2nd of December. It is 20. No, it's not. It's 2 minutes past 10, and we're late. We're sorry. Me and Kev have just been arsing around with blurred backgrounds and stuff, so if it looks a bit weird, what do you want us to do? We're just having the crack. We're discussing the possibility of getting green screens. I reckon I could pull off a green screen, but then trying to ring Kevin and explain how to use a green screen, I don't think it'd go very well. He just go, Gav, I'm putting this in the fucking bin. Fuck off.
Pretty much, yeah.
Zach says, how good was yesterday? Best win of the season. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. And Zach, if you haven't checked out our post-match show with Kev, with Chris, and we're actually go and do it. You can listen or watch it, or you can listen and watch me and Matt having a lovely chat about the game, and then doing a advent calendar that looked like a angel shamrock tree, which was full of football narratives, which was absolutely fantastic. I had so much fun doing that, and
That was hilarious.
Honestly, he told me afterwards he was dying for hours to tell me about it, but he somehow managed not to tell me about it before the show. So I knew nothing about it, as much as people might think I did, because I said, what happens on the 4th of December? Oh, an advent calendar. And then he whipped one out. Genuinely, it wasn't like that at all. We have got a couple of new members on board as well. I've added them into the Telegram group, so they should be all happy as Larry. So yeah, if you want to become a member, hit the join button, like $3.99 a month. You're going to get more and more member shows as we go forward now. And you had one this morning, you're going to have one tomorrow morning, and you'll have some during the week at 10 p.m. as well. So do that if you want. Otherwise, like, subscribe, comment, and yeah, get involved in the show. That's what we want. We want people getting involved in these shows, throwing stuff in there we can read out, argue with us, whatever you like. Anyway, this is the Weekend Rewind, where we look back at the weekend's football. Not so much exclusively Liverpool. We look at other stuff. But before we do, Kev, the FA Cup third round draw was made this evening. Did I hear right? It was made at Old Trafford.
It was made at Old Trafford because they won it last year.
Okay.
You had Mark Hughes and Dion Dublin drawing the balls.
So Mark Hughes and Dion Dublin. Okay.
Yeah. So it's proper Manchester United throwback to the 1990s.
Yeah.
When they were doing the draw and what have you. And then they done the draw. I think it was the second one out. Arsenal at home.
Against United.
Arsenal at home, drawn against Dion Dublin pulled out Manchester United. And if the ground could swallow him up, because the collective sigh that went around the studio, because it was like probably about 100, 150 people there. It was like, oh, God.
Yeah,
it was one of them. It was then it couldn't have happened to a nicer club, to be honest.
But that's the way it goes, you know. Gavin Walsh said he's still buzzing after the game yesterday, causing all the Gunner fans' heads to fall off at work today. Was only the crack. I haven't seen much Arsenal reaction to it. I'm going to be honest with you, because you know me, I don't give a bollocks what do you think. But I usually, it pops up on your timelines. But I haven't seen an awful lot of Arsenal reaction to Liverpool's win yesterday, because you know what Arsenal do. They absolutely love talking about Liverpool. Some other stuff, and I did do a YouTube short, Kev. I done a YouTube short, would you believe it?
All the boss.
Right?
All the boss.
Yeah, so I've been told by people, do a few shorts, try yourself out there, fucking tell people what's going on. So I did. I done it. Check it out on YouTube. It's fantastic. I done it out the back. I had Christmas lights in the background. I had my hat on. You can still see the
chilly in Dublin.
Well, you can kind of still see the result of me having the hat on. My hair's all over the place. But I did do a video where I went through the big toys. So Liverpool against Accrington Stanley. We'll get to that in a minute. Arsenal against United. Villa against West Ham is a good one. City against Salford. Chelsea against Morecambe, Tamworth against Spurs, which Tamworth will be delighted with. That'll get them plenty of TV money and stuff. Newcastle against Bromley, and Leeds against Harrogate were kind of the standout ones. Premier League, joint killers, all that sort of thing. Clubs looking to make money off it. But Liverpool got Accrington Stanley, and I said it in the YouTube short. It feels like we haven't got a draw like this in ages. But then again, I can't even remember Liverpool's last FA Cup draw. So was it?
The one that sticks out in my head was Exeter.
Oh yeah,
do you remember it was early in
Klopp's fourth season?
I think it was very early in Klopp's
reign.
It might have been his first interview in like the tea shed or something, or in the canteen.
Yeah,
and it was just absolutely mental. But I suppose that's that's the beauty of the FA Cup. If you get an away draw like that at the lower league side, I mean, if you're Tamworth, you're buzzing on the back of that. And, you know, Morecambe, another one. Huge money spinners for these. There's a few tasty ones as well with the likes, because I always keep an eye out for Bristol City.
Yeah.
It's they got Wolves at home.
Hmm.
You know, so it's like City aren't doing too bad in the Championship, and Wolves are struggling to buy a win at the minute. And those kind of ties, you never know what could happen in those. But you'll always throw up a couple of decent games in the FA Cup, no doubt about it. But all you can ask for really is home tie, ideally not against someone in your league. So, you know, someone in the league at home. That's all you can hope for, because it's going to come after a mental amount of football that's coming up in the next 6 weeks.
That's true. John Summer says we played Havant and Waterlooville a couple of years ago. I think that
was Sturridge's first game. Sturridge and Coutinho.
No. Sturridge's first game was Mansfield. I think was it Mansfield? We're away too. He scores early in it. The Havant and Waterlooville one is the one where I think it's around 2009, and what's his name? Lucas Leiva scores. He bends one in the top corner at the Anfield Road end. I do remember that. Scouts of Pieces, Marine managed to renovate their ground from the money they got from the sports game a few years ago. Yeah, it's huge. The money is huge for them. The money's huge for these clubs. Absolutely colossal money for them, you know. But look, it's a good draw. It's a home draw against Accrington Stanley. And
if Ian Rush is not there drinking a pint of milk,
yeah, well, that's
everything.
You know, the people that have said exactly and who are they and all sorts of stuff. Ian Rush, the milk card, all that sort of things.
It just writes itself.
Yeah, Dan J says it was definitely Mansfield for Sturridge. Yeah, he scores about 11 minutes into the game on his debut. But Dan J also says, I was buzzing until all the Salah bullshit, which of course is more stuff's coming out now about Mo Salah. He'll accept a year extension. He'll do this. Dan, read your words, man. Salah bullshit. Just leave it. Honestly, honestly, it'll sort itself out one way or the other. Don't stress over it. There's no point. Like, we can discuss it by all means, but me, Kev, Dan, you know, anyone in the chat stressing over it. No point. There's simply no point. But it's quite clear Mo Salah wants to stay at Liverpool. He wants to get something done. And every day that it's not signed, it's going to be, oh, well, he hasn't had an offer and they haven't been at the table and they haven't done this and they haven't done that. And it's going to be all that. I do think, though, that if they don't get something done, there's going to be serious questions to be answered. The Van Dijk side of things seems very calm. Seems like, you know, that could be okay. And the Trent one, we just simply don't know. So that's the way it is. But look, the weekend, Kev. I've stuck Sean Dyche and Lopetegui on the artwork for this show because I want to talk about managers under pressure. And you reminded me of Gary O'Neill as well. But let's start with him. You know, they get beaten 4-2, I think, at home by Bournemouth at the weekend. 3 penalties for Bournemouth. And you were saying before we come on that, you know, Gary O'Neill probably threw a few of his players under the bus after you were watching Match of the Day.
Yeah. Oh, I think I'm after freezing.
You're okay?
I'm all right? Okay. Yeah. No, I watched the Match of the Day and I watched the post-match, the interview afterwards. And he was fuming at 2 of the penalties that were given away. They were given away through back passes, basically. And, you know, if he's been at the club a while now, and this goes back to, I think it was a conversation that was going on in one of the WhatsApp groups earlier on when we were talking. It was going around about Pep Guardiola and how good he was and the influence he's had on the game and everything. That's all well and good. But if you're Wolverhampton Wanderers, and you're telling your players to play out from the back at all costs, against a side like Bournemouth who will press the living daylights out of you, it's all well and good trying to play like, you know, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Man City's Pep Guardiola's Man City side. You don't have the players to do it. Stop it. Wolves are sat in the relegation zone.
Yeah,
you know, Gary O'Neill started life at Wolves really well.
Yeah,
and he was doing a really good job last season, and I don't know what he's after doing, whether he's after trying to find himself in football and decided, right, I'm going to be an all-conquering football manager who's going to play tiki-taka football at all costs, and it's going to cost him his job. I sent you a list of the sack race betting at the minute, and I think he's third favorite in the sack race betting.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a couple go, I think, in the next month because the January window's coming, and usually in the lead up to the January window, something happens. Managers
it's currently just to let you know, Lopetegui is currently 11-8, Russell Martin 2-1, Sean Dyche 4-1, Gary O'Neill 7-1, Glasner is at 16-1, and then Eddie Howe and 20-1 on, which you know, 20-1 and higher. Sorry,
but I'm looking at Wolves and I think you don't have the players to play the way you want to play. So if you're not willing to adapt, then you're going to die. And at the end of the day, they're at home. The Wolves fans are fuming over the type of goals they were conceding. Some of them are blaming the keeper. And yeah, you can blame the keeper and you can blame the defenders and what have you. But if the manager can't get his point across and he can't get them to play it properly and he can't pick his bunnies, basically, like you look at a side like Bournemouth, we play Bournemouth are no joke. And if you want to play out through their press, you've got to be very good and confident on the ball. And Wolves just ain't that at the minute. You know, they don't have those type of centre backs who are really good on the ball and who can play football like the way Gary O'Neill wants them to play. So, I mean, the 3 penalties, I mean, I think it's the first time in 67 years in top flight football that a player has scored a hat-trick of penalties. You know, it doesn't happen. But the flip side of it, Wolves score 2 really good goals. You know, so I don't get what he's trying to achieve by this. In the same way as you look at, and we'll talk about him down the line, but there's plenty of other managers down in the bottom 6 trying to play football a certain way to copy what Guardiola's doing. And I don't know if it's the Vincent Kompany effect from last year. Vincent Kompany goes and takes Burnley down and he gets the Bayern Munich job. He gets the Bayern Munich job because he's Vincent Kompany, not because of the style of football he's playing. You know, I don't get what these managers are trying to do.
But I think adapting to your situation or the players you have or the form you're in, people don't talk about this enough for me. You know, like you look at Pep Guardiola, right? I think they've lost 6 on the spin or have 1 in 7 or whatever it is, right? And he's not adapting. And I know he's Pep Guardiola and people love him and he's this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, if it's not going right, you adapt. And you say to yourself, right, what's going wrong here? Yeah, we're quite threatening going forward, but we're quite open at the back. Let's tighten it up a little bit at the back. Yeah, because the benefits of tightening up at the back far outweighs what you're going to lose potentially going forward. You know, they still have enough quality to do damage. And then you look at Gary O'Neill and you look at Russell Martin
he's the next one on my list.
And you're right in what you're saying in with regards to Vincent Kompany. They come up, and what they do is, I think they end up being so pig-headed over what they're doing, right? And look, Kompany for me is an outlier. He ends up getting the Bayern Munich job because, in my opinion, he gets the Bayern Munich job because he's a yes man. He's a big name, but he's a yes man. He go in there and he just do everything they tell him, right? Because Bayern Munich is ran by everything about Bayern Munich is ran by the hierarchy. So that's an outlier. But what I think these managers would have a much better foundation to their CV and their potential if, for argument's sake, Russell Martin come up and said, "Look, we played this football last season. We love playing it, but we know what the jump is from the Championship to the Premier League. And we feel we're going to have to adapt and we're probably going to have a bit more defensive. But when we do get the ball, we're going to try play that football. But when we don't have it, you know, we're going to be compact. We're going to be, you know, we're going to sit a bit deeper, wherever it might be. Yeah. But they don't seem to want to do it. They seem to go, no, I know the best. And you'd be better off going in with the attitude of Sheffield United. That came up and went, listen, we're brutal. We haven't got a chance here. We're going to spend minimal amount of money. We're going to go down. We're going to take our parachute payment. We're going to try come back up, and then we'll be in a much better position financially to be able to put money into the club and not be, at the mercy of creditors or whatever it might be. And I just look at these managers, like I look at Gary O'Neill has kind of gone under the radar a bit for me because I always feel like with Wolves, they'll be okay when you look at the quality of players they have. But when you go, and Bournemouth aren't a bad side, you're right, Kev. But Wolves shouldn't be getting beaten 4-2 at home by Bournemouth. Not in that manner. Not giving up that amount of chances and that amount of opportunities to foul in their own box to have 3 penalties against them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Don't get me. And what'll happen is Wolves will go out at the weekend against Everton. Sorry, they played them on Wednesday. They'll go out against Everton, and what they'll do is they'll play exactly the same way. Instead of saying to themselves, "We're away at Goodison. This is a massive game for Everton because of the run of games they have. What's the best thing to do at Goodison? Let's sit back. Let's frustrate them, and we know we can turn them around going the other way. But they won't. They'll come out and be open. They'll possibly lose the game. And a team that are currently 2 points clear of them will go 5 points clear of them.
Yeah.
And there's the lack of, I find there's a lot of one-dimensional managers going around the place now, Kev. They've one way of doing it. And if you can't do it that way, they get the sack.
Yeah. And then you're on to the next one and the next one. It's like it's the merry-go-round in reverse. You used to have your stalwarts of the Premier League. All right, where you knew what you were going to get. The Harry Redknapps, Sam Allardyce, Neil Warnocks, these type of managers who've been around the houses. But Harry Redknapp is probably the one you'd look at and say, you look at the Harry Redknapp side, and he will adapt to the players that he has as to how he plays football. There's always managers, and they say, okay, we always try to play a 4 at the back. We'll try and play a 3 in midfield with 1 sit-in. And the forwards, we'll see what we have. We can play with 2 strikers, 1 striker and 2 wingers, whatever. But the first thing that Allardyce, Redknapp, Warnock would always look to do is, right, we're going to be hard to beat. First and foremost, we're going to be hard to beat because it's probably the easiest thing to coach in football is how to set up to be difficult to play against.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to teach in football is how to be that and the threat going the other way and score goals. But if you can lock off being hard to beat and have players like the caliber of forwards that Wolves have at their disposal, then there is no way you should be sitting on after 13 games with 2 wins, on 9 points.
Yeah, but you see, my thing here is when we like, if you take Ipswich for argument's sake, right? Ipswich at the start of the season, you're like, look, they're lively, they're not shipping shitloads of goals, but they probably won't score enough, right?
Yeah.
And Ipswich, I know they're down there, but I think they've probably been one of the better sides at adapting this season to what they are. So what they've done is they've said to themselves, right, let's continue to keep it tight. We need to score more goals. What do we need to do? That we need to get this guy Hutchinson into the game a bit more. The lap up front is causing problems, but we're still going to be as solid as we can. And you have to, when you come up in, when you're struggling down there, you have to find the balance. You either have to be miserable at the back, where you concede nothing, right, or you have to get loads of goals. Teams down there generally don't get loads of goals, so the mix is, lads, we are going to concede most games, but we need to be able to score, right? Or we're not going to concede in very few games, but we're not really going to score. You have to find a balance, Kev.
Yeah.
And for me, these teams don't find the balance. These teams, what they do is they go in and go, we'll play our way and we're going to stick to our guns. And listen, people can say, oh, that's, fair play to them, but it's not. It's simply not, Kev, because so many teams come up, they stick to what they believe in, and what they believe in just isn't true.
No.
I look at Wolves just on Wolves. Wolves have gone through a weird time over the last 4 or 5 years because the agent guy was in there and now he's gone, and a lot of players that were there wanted to get out, and they seen it as their stepping stone, and some of them got that stepping stone, some of them had to go, but they feel like they're a bit in limbo at the minute. But if I'm Gary O'Neill, I'm saying to myself, I've good players here. Can we not make ourselves solid? Because the good players I have are actually up the top end of the pitch, and they will be able to do it. They actually I think they have a good recipe for being solid and being able to be a threat. And if you're solid and you're a threat, you stay up in the league. You genuinely stay up in the league.
But this is where I've got a real bugbear with Wolves. You don't have to pass out from the back at all costs. Especially when you look at the... I'm just going to bring it up there now. I just want to have a quick look at the starting lineup because I just want to be sure on what I'm saying here. Right, you had Jose Sa in goal. Semedo, Barcelona School of Football, can play. Okay?
Yeah.
Lemina is a centre mid. All right, so Lemina is playing a centre back. He actually had a match rating of 8 on football, which is difficult considering he lost 4-2. Who's this right? Tossi Gomez, who's a big lumbering clump of a centre back, and Ait Nouri. Ait Nouri's been touted around by Liverpool fans as Robert's replacement. I'm sorry, he just isn't. All right, he is not a fucking fullback for any stretch of the imagination. He can't play fullback. He's shit. But then you look at the players in front of him. Andre, linked with us for ages. Gomez, who I like. Bellegarde, Cunha. Up front, Strand Larsen scored a brace. Rodrigo Gomez, another young Portuguese left winger. They have talented players. But if you can't fix that at the back and you're giving away stupid goals because of your own stupidity and passing out from the back, that lands on the players or the manager. And I'm sorry, when you got a manager at the end of the game blaming his centre-back and his keeper, you put him on the pitch, mate. What have you been telling him for the last 13 games? You've been telling them to play this way, and they just can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. And the other side, you look at Ipswich, right? Ipswich are below them in the table. They've only won 1 game this season, but they have 6 draws.
Yeah.
Which tells me that Chris put it in the chat there earlier.
But what does that tell you, Kev? That tells you that they're staying in games, which means they're fairly solid and they're a threat. So the balance is actually there. And what happens if you have a team that are constantly in these loads of draws, right? They might get 3 that they win.
Yeah.
Right. So if you go over a 12-game period and you say to me, Ipswich might draw all them 12 games and get 12 points, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, if Ipswich have a balance there where they're a threat and they're fairly solid, right? Over those 12 games, instead of 12 points, they might get 4 draws, 4 wins, and 4 defeats.
Exactly.
Right? Which gives you 16 points. So, do you know what I mean? But they're giving themselves the opportunity to get 16 points. Whereas other teams that refuse to say, look, we're trying to play out the back and we're getting fucking murdered here. Right? Instead of saying that, what's happening over there, 12 games? They're winning 1. They're winning 1. They might win 2. They're drawing fucking 3. They're getting 9 points out of that 12. And over the course of the season, Ipswich's style will do better than what Wolves are trying to do, and because that's the way they feel it should be done.
Yeah. Like Southampton are another one.
Southampton blow my mind as to how they play football.
I think Russell Martin believes that Russell Martin, because I think Russell Martin talks about Russell Martin in the third person all the time.
Yeah.
But when he's at home looking at having a shave or thinking about having a shave, then no, I've got a sexy beard. No, I'm not. So Russell Martin won't shave his beard today. Russell Martin will go to training. Russell Martin goes and looks at his Southampton team and thinks, I want to be Brighton manager. But if I want to be the next Brighton manager, I have to play the Brighton way.
But you don't.
And this is what I mean. It's ridiculous. It's arrogance in its supremacy that he thinks he can do what Man City do. He can do what Brighton do as an established Premier League side, with a side who's just come up from the Championship, with a load of signings that he's bought from Man City's academy, and thinking he can play this way. Well, you just can't. And the fact that you're doing it now for 13 games on the strength of 1 win and having your arse handed to you with 5 points, and you still refuse to adapt.
But Southampton came out of the Championship through the playoffs. It's not like they blew the Championship apart.
No.
And the other thing is, right, if you get the Brighton job, right, or most jobs in the Premier League, they come available because the manager before them hasn't been good enough. right? There's outliers, the likes of Klopp going and Slot, Graham Potter leaving, and there's Zerbi coming in, things like that, because Graham Potter was headhunted.
Yeah.
But a lot of these teams down there, they get jobs because the manager wasn't good enough. So what's better on your CV? Is it, oh, he plays a really great style of football in the championship and came and got through to the playoffs after finishing fourth or wherever he finished. And he's come into the Premier League and his experience in the Premier League has been 1 win in 14. Or is it he's really good style in the championship? He came up through the playoffs. And when he got into the Premier League, in 13 games, he had 4 wins, he had 3 defeats, and he had 3 draws.
Yeah.
And how did he do it? Because he was able to adapt. Exactly. And what happens is they end up pigeonholing themselves into this style, and it becomes very stale very quickly. And that's how it is. Dan Austin said, I was getting a bit freaked out there for a second. I thought Kev was Russell Martin. There you go. But look, Gary O'Neill, I think I agree with you. I think he's on a hide into nothing if he continues to do what he's doing. But I think he hasn't. You see, I think Gary O'Neill has an awful lot of credit in the bank with people because of what went on with Bournemouth, and also the decisions against Wolves, which we can't forget.
No, that's true.
The decisions against Wolves have been horrendous, but at the end of the day, they can see the 3 goals, they can see the 3 penalties the other day, and lots of their failures this season has been down to the fact that they're trying to do something that I'm not sure if they're capable, but it doesn't suit them. When you look at that team should be one way you're going, listen, get into midfield as quick as you can. Don't float around the back. Get into midfield to the Andre and your whoever, and then get it to these attackers that you've Strand Larson, Cunha, the Portuguese lad you've mentioned, because they can impact. Do you get me?
Yeah,
It's weird, but I want to move on to Lopetegui because this has been an unmitigated.
He's yours, isn't he? You've been talking about him for a while now.
Yeah, I called it from before the start of the season when he got that job and the players he was bringing in. I said to myself, that's just an absolute disaster waiting to happen. And the fact that it's West Ham, I doubled down on it because West Ham, they had Moyes, they win a European competition with Moyes. It goes a bit stale. He leaves. They bring in this guy, and I hate to say it, it feels a bit like West Ham tried to get above their station. If we're getting rid of Moyes, we're going to go for Lopetegui, and he was at Wolves. He was a disaster. He was here, there, and everywhere, wherever he was. But the standard of football, Kev, is appalling, and you cannot tell me that those West Ham players are enjoying playing under this guy because it's rank.
No, I mean, look, losing in the manner that they lost to Arsenal is one thing. Okay, it's Arsenal, and Arsenal, when they have their best 11 on the pitch, are as good as anything out there, especially if you allow them to play.
Yeah.
And when you watch the highlights on Match of the Day of that game and you look at some of the goals that they conceded, I mean, the Fabianski penalty, the second one, where he comes to try to clear it, try to clear the corner and just miss times. That's, that happens. I don't mind that, but some of the other ones, there's a 1-2 that Saka played and he ran in behind and nobody bothered to track the runner. It's just doing the basics. And some of the goals that Arsenal scored were simple. They really were routine, basic defending. And you have to wonder, what are they working on? It's all well and good. But, if you're playing against a side who are better than you and they dissect you, they take you apart, they score really good goals, and you can't get a touch on the ball, that's one thing. But they went to Newcastle 1-2-0, and they were the better side. They deserved it. So the thing is, on their day, they can play, but they're inconsistent. They're easy to play against, and it's the one thing I don't think you could really level at a David Moyes West Ham side, is because of the length of time he was there. They were tough nuts to play against. They gave us good games for years. Home or away, we usually got the better of them, but they were never easy games. And there were some games there where you're looking at Paqueta playing, and he just looks a real special player. In this setup, playing in a double six with Souček, looks lost. Just looks like I don't need to be here. He played Somerville and Bowen on the wings against Arsenal. what are you trying to prove? You know, you're playing against a side who are looking to try to get into second in the league with a full strength side that are coming against you. You're at home on the back of a win at Newcastle. Surely you need to be, you know, trying to be just solid. There's no need to be playing two wingers and a striker and a centre attacking mid in Soler. It just doesn't. You're not going to boss the ball against Arsenal. So why are you playing that lineup in the first place? I think Lopetegui got the job because he had the Madrid job, he had the Seville job, he was a Spain manager at one stage, so he's obviously not a fool. But I just don't think he gets English football, and I don't think he gets West Ham. And I don't think West Ham will take to him. I think he's on a hiding to nothing from the start.
I just think his style of football, like, you know, like when you, like, if you take, say, like Spurs, when they look for the new managers, like, will he play the Spurs way? And you're like, what the fuck's the Spurs way? Like, you know, that was all dreamt up under when Glenn Hoddle was around and playing.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. I just don't think he suits I think he's trying to be too precise in what he's doing. But I don't think he has the players to be too precise, and he's not at the club to do it. He's not at a club that like experimenting with stuff and give you time. The West Ham fans won't have it. Fernando Chase, I don't understand why you're slating the way these teams are playing. They're trying to find a way to play against better funded, well-established Premier League teams. It's about trying to find what works. I've no problem with teams trying to find the best way to play, but I can promise you, Southampton's best way to play, Burnley's best way to play, and Wolves' best way to play is simply not playing out from the back with the players that they have. It isn't. It genuinely, and it never will be. Not against the likes of your Liverpools, your Arsenals, your Cities, even your Spurs, that'll press you and go after you. It's not. They don't have the quality to play through that on a regular basis where they can actually keep themselves in a game while doing that. They just don't. And don't get me wrong, if Wolves stayed up and, you know, said, right, we're going to be solid for the rest of the season, we're going to stay up, and they brought in a bit more quality, they might say, right, at certain times we might be able to try this. But it's a long process to try it. And literally two of the three teams we're talking about here in Burnley and Southampton, one from last season, one from this season, have literally arrived in the Premier League and decided this is the way home. And it's not. And it'll show at the end of the season that it's not. So I understand them wanting to find the right way to play. But not in a million years. Not in a million years is it the right way to come up into the Premier League and try?
No, the right way to play in the Premier League is an effective way to get points. And the one thing I'll say for West Ham, look,
solid and a threat.
Yeah, losing Nicholas Fulkrug has been a problem because I don't think Mikel Antonio can lead the line for a Premier League side anymore. You know, so that is definitely a problem for them. But I'm just having a quick look and seeing who's on the bench for them. You know, you're left with then like the likes of Danny Ings, you know, Kufau, Alvarez they brought in for big money.
Yeah, but Alvarez just comes on the pitch and gets sent off. That's what he does.
Yeah, but this is their problem. I mean, I think you combine a side who won a European Cup, a European trophy, had back-to-back European finishes, and you have to look at it. Can you keep solidifying where you are, or do you try to make the next step? And the problem when you try to make the next step is if you don't buy well, you get found out really quickly. And it's something actually I saw a clip of a podcast earlier on, and it was actually someone asking Carragher about FFP. And Carragher turned around and in fairness to him, I don't take much truck in what he says on Sky. But on this, I thought he was absolutely spot on, because the misconception is with FFP is that it stops people going out and spending wads and wads of money. That's one part of it. The other part of it is you have to sell well. And if you sell well, then you can invest properly. But if you make bad investments, it should hurt you on the pitch. And you're seeing it now really with the likes of West Ham. Somerville doesn't really cut it. He didn't cut it for Leeds. You know, he wasn't great in the Championship last year either, to be fair. I remember listening to Joe talking about him. And he's like, yeah, he'll show you flashes of what he might be. but he's not.
I know. I think he might have been really good in the Championship last year.
I don't think he was.
Well, I'd have
Well,
to look
he might
that
have
up.
been okay, but he might have been okay. But look, that's the Championship. I was just looking at the likes of him. If you're going to be spending good money on someone like him to come in, and Fulkrug had a really good season for, I think, Borussia Dortmund. But before that, he didn't really do much. Alvarez they spent big money on. Paqueta they spent well on. Kilman they spent a fortune on.
Yeah.
From most.
But
It's
see,
like these signings have to work, and
I know,
they're just not.
But Kev, like Thor says there, Gav, West Ham bring in more quality. Question mark. They have spent big in the last few years. I'm not talking about West Ham. I'm talking about the likes of your Wolves and Southampton that persist to play like this. My problem with West Ham is that I think they've good players, but I think what he's trying to do there with those players is mad. It's absolutely mad, like. And you're watching them playing, and I don't think the style of play suits them at all. It just doesn't suit them. And
I'd be looking to get Jarrod Bowen on the ball as much as humanly possible for West Ham.
But it looks like his last piece of interest in his football team is the guys that are up top.
Yeah.
And ironically, they still shipped 4 goals in half an hour against Arsenal to start that game the other day because they couldn't. They're being bullied. And the size of some of these players that are playing, they're being bullied. I'm amazed he's still in a job. I'm going to be honest with you. Now, another one that you probably think I'm amazed he's still in a job. I'm not. Because of the absolute shambles that the club is around him, is Sean Dyche. And you know me, I listen to an Everton podcast on the regular. I listen to nearly every episode they have because I'm always intrigued.
They're just good lads.
They are good lads, and they speak the truth. And I have to say, their post-match reaction to United yesterday, the guy on it was absolutely top-notch. And I apologise, he won't be listening, but I apologise because I can't remember his name. But basically, these two guys that were doing the post-match, I think they left the game a little bit early because he said, I had enough of that. And they went to a pub in Manchester to do the post-match recording. And this guy tore Everton asunder from top to bottom, inside out. He absolutely went for them. And he basically described them as a pointless football club. He said, we have turned in to a pointless football club that just happens to be taking up one of the spots in the Premier League. If you get a chance, go back and listen to the post-match reaction of the Blue Room, because he's absolutely so spot on in everything he's saying about everything. Like, and you can hear he's emotional, he's upset, he's annoyed, but he's so measured in what he's saying, and he was so good. But the problem these have, Kev, is that there's no one around Sean Dyche to get rid of him. The people that are in position there aren't in position to sack him because there's a takeover on the way. And what do they do? They get rid of Sean Dyche and give it to someone within the club on an interim basis until the owners come in? What did he do here? Because, like Bob says, there Dyche saved them. In the situation they were in 2 years ago, they would be relegated. I get that, but the problem here with Sean Dyche is that he saves them. They're appalling last season again, right? Well, they're not appalling, but they're not good. And in this season, I think they've been absolutely terrible. And he might be a guy that can save you, but they're averaging up. I think it might be less than a point a game here. They're averaging.
It is.
They have an horrific run coming up between now and the middle of January, and I'm part of me is like, how's that man still in a job? But part of me is like, of course he's still in a job. There's no one there to sack him. They look so poor.
I look at Sean Dyche, and you got to look at Everton as a whole as to what's gone on over the last few years. The truth is, I think they should have gone 2 years ago. They definitely could have gone last year, and they could go again this year. There's only so much blame you can lay at a manager's door when they haven't got a bob to piss in or a bucket to throw it out of. It's a window to throw it out of. It's just they need players. They need serious investment. They need this takeover deal to happen. Forget about the stadium and all that other nonsense. They need this takeover, and they need stability in the ownership first and foremost. Then they need investment, and because they need players. It's not that they haven't spent; it's just that they've been wheeling and dealing in in the transfer market for a while. And yeah, this is where bad business and bad transfers come back to bite them over a period of time. But the fact that they've been able to stay in the division is in large part to Sean Dyche and how he sets them up not to be beaten in certain games.
Yeah,
And
I
think
get
he
and
looked.
I get that, Kev, right? But what like early doors football TV says, Moyes looks the obvious choice for Everton, right? Why is Moyes even considering going near that? It's a
I
car
don't think he
crash.
does.
It does nothing for him, right? If he's looking to get back into football, which he might not, right? But if he is, why is he wasting his time going into Everton? Because let's be honest, right? If he goes into Everton tomorrow, right, and by some fucking magic he goes into Everton tomorrow, right? The chances are the new owners come in and go, we don't want David Moyes, we want Jose Mourinho, right? Just for argument's sake, right? So David Moyes goes in and puts himself into that position for 6 months, while other jobs, better jobs, are going to 100% become available in those 6 months. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, I think it's a madness for any manager out there looking at Everton situation going, I'm not going near that. Now, don't get me wrong, if the freaking group come in and take over and they say, right, we have sorted this, and this, we have the stadium is sorted, we've cleared all the debt, we're now fucking on 11 playing field and we're able to invest money, then any manager go, well, that looks a decent project.
No, it's a prospect,
but not now.
No.
Not now.
No.
And I understand that they're harping back to Moyes, the People's Club, the fucking all this shit, and he done really well at Everton. At times
he punched well above his weight.
Yeah, he did on a couple of occasions. But if I'm David Moyes, I'm sitting there going, if I want to get back into football, I've taken me a couple of months off here. I want to get back in. I'm going into a job that I probably won't have. I'm going to a job that I probably won't have at the start of next season going into this new stadium. Why am I taking it? Because I could actually, other better jobs could pass me by in that time. All for the romance of David Moyes coming back.
No, it's not a David Moyes job. I mean, Sean Dyche will probably stay there until the takeover happens and then the new owners will make a decision. But I'll tell you one thing, they need to be in the Premier League, first and foremost. And they could do worse than give Sean Dyche the money and the type of players that he wants.
But they don't have the money, Kev.
The new owners, with the debt cleared, will have certain leeway to be able to invest for a period of time.
But that's now you're making the presumption that when these owners take over, that the debt on the football club is cleared. What they're doing is they're buying Fahir Mashiri's shares in Everton, which is going to cost them fuck all at this stage, right? Because he just wants rid of it, right?
Yeah.
They have put money up, right? The freaking group put up money. The simple reason they put up X amount of money was to pay off a loan to a company called MSP, who had a claim, if the loan wasn't repaid, had a claim on 50% of Fahir Mashiri's shares plus 50% of the ground, right? But of that 170 or 80 million that was owed. So what the freaking group done was they went in and said, we'll give you the 200 million to pay them. I think it was 160 million. We'll give you that money. It was 200 million, but 160 of it to these guys, 40 for day-to-day running costs. But basically they said, we'll give you that money, which gets rid of that problem over there where these guys can claim the shares. We'll still make our money back, even if we don't take over the club. But when we take over the club, we don't have this issue over here. Anyway, so what they're doing is they've gone in. So the club already owes them 200 million quid. They're 200 million in the hole already. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they're buying his shares for next to none, which is fair. But they're walking into a football club that has around 500 or 600 million pound in debt. Plus, they have a stadium that they're building, which I don't think is actually factored into the debt of this football club. Right? Okay?
Yeah.
Because they owe 777 200 million pound.
I was going to ask you about that,
right? They owe them that. They used to owe MSP 200 or 160. They now owe the freaking group 160. Right? I think the number is somewhere between 400 and 600 million pound debt. Okay, that's without the expenses for the stadium. And we all know when you move into a new stadium, money just doesn't flow straight away. Look at Arsenal going back to 2005 when they moved into the Emirates. It took them 10 years to come back to the Arsenal that we thought they were challenging for. Even, they were making it in the Champions League, but they had to sell all the players. They were selling to Man City. They were getting rid of players. And people think that these guys are going to come in and go, all the money's there now, lads. They're going in there is they're going in and they're going to secure that stadium for themselves at an investment of 300 million quid. That's a stadium worth £1 billion. That's what they're doing. Okay. And his track record in Roma is not good. It's not good with managers.
Doesn't have to be good with managers, but what they have done at Roma is make sure that the club is competitive in Serie A.
Okay.
Where they will be at least in and around European spots. Now, Roma is a big club anyway, but them knocking around the Europa League, the Conference League, pushing to get into the top four is okay, and Roma will take that. But if you're Everton, you still have to stay in the division. And I'm looking at the 11 he put out against Manchester. He was able to put out against Manchester United because I don't know how much more was available to him. I mean,
what I'm getting off when I listen to this stuff around Everton fans is that Sean Dyche Sean Dyche's purpose at Everton is null and void now. Right? It's null and void now. His idea is to make them solid, not conceding goals, not losing games, grabbing a draw, maybe winning. You lose a couple, everyone loses. Yeah. But they're not that anymore, Kev. They're open at the back. They're giving up plenty of fucking chances. They're not scoring enough goals. I said it earlier, Kev. Solid and a threat, right?
Yeah.
And in being a threat, you're scoring some goals. They are not solid anymore, Kev, and they're not scoring enough goals. And the only reason that man is still in the job is because everything above him doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Plus, what's left on his deal? Did he have the money to pay him off? I don't know.
I wouldn't have thought I'd imagine his deal would be contingent in where he is in the league. So I'd say at the minute, he's not in a relegation zone. He's not going to be in the relegation. He shouldn't be in the relegation zone by the time the transfer window comes around. But the other side of it is
there's a massive chance of being in the relegation zone. I think they sit 2 points above 19th place.
Oh, hang on a second.
No, I'm nearly sure they sit 2 points above the relegation place.
Well, they're on 11. Yeah, actually, do you know what? Yeah, they're.
Right. Now let me read the fixtures out to you. Home to Wolves, away to Liverpool. Home to Wolves, home to Liverpool, away to Arsenal, home to Chelsea, away to Manchester City, home to Forest, away to Bournemouth, home to Villa, home to Spurs, away to Brighton. That's between now and the end of January.
Jesus.
Right? There's a huge chance they'll be in there. And the problem for Everton is, if they go in there and they go 4 points from safety, they'll just fucking internally combust. They will just literally fucking, their heads will fall off completely.
But they've been here so many times, even with the points deductions and stuff. They've always managed to find a way of grinding out 2 or 3 wins on the bounce.
Yeah.
That just puts them into a safety zone.
Yeah.
But I see where you're looking at there. They've scored only 10 goals this season. And I'm looking at it. I think that's the joint lowest goal scored total with Southampton this season of anyone.
Yeah. It's just, I honestly, Kev, I genuinely think to be better off maybe there is a payoff that they don't want to pay. I don't know what it is, but I think to be like Moyes doesn't make sense. Moyes makes sense for Everton, but I don't think Everton makes sense for Moyes. So maybe it will happen, right? But if it was going to happen, surely it would have happened by now, no?
This is where I look at.
But a third of the way into the season, they're sitting 2 points off 19th place.
But you're also, you're also what? 5 weeks away from the opening of a transfer window.
Yeah, and they've no money.
No, but they do have at least one saleable asset, maybe two.
Yeah.
And if you're down and around there anyway, and you can recoup money by selling a Brantwaite in this window and the only way you could sell someone like that is if you could be guaranteed to be able to turn that into 3 players.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point in selling. But if you can turn that into 3 players that will give you a fighting chance of staying up, you'd have to do it.
But
you know, if you're going to change the manager, that's the gamble, isn't it? You have to get money into the club if you're going to.
I understand that, Kev, but you're looking at a guy that they signed from Leon, didn't they? O'Brien. Was it Leon he was with? Okay. Yeah. And this is the other thing. They signed him for 20 million from Leon, right? Okay. And I don't think he gets a game. They signed the other fella, Mangala, from Leon for 16 or 18 million quid, right? And that was all around the fact that this Leon owner was meant to be coming in and trying to take over the club. And now there's no sign of him. So now they've invested 38 million or 36 million quid in 2 players because they think, the fella that owns Leon will become part of this. And now he's not. Do you know? It's all over the place. And
that's insane.
I'm telling you now, they'll have no choice. If they lose against Wolves during the week and they lose to us, they've no choice but to get rid of them. And
who would you look to try to bring in?
Who would
you look abroad? Would you look abroad? I mean, who would want it? I think you'd have to be trying to get a manager.
The answer to that problem is the guy he had, and he sacked. Available.
They'll never go for him again.
No, but
not in a million years.
There's an argument that they should have never sacked Rafa Benitez.
No, we said that at the time.
There's an argument that he should have never. Tom Boland says the Kaparov Leon are in financial trouble, and Jonathan says give it to Rafa for the crack, but that's what you need. Rafa Benitez would make Everton solid and a threat.
Yeah,
and they'll draw more games than they'll lose. They might get the same amount of wins, but they'll draw more than they lose. I don't know who you give it to, but they look so fucking stale to me. Ushin says your man John Texter got own issues at Leon. Now they have a provisional relegation. If they can't clear 500 million before the end of the season, they will go under.
They're done.
So that's what you're dealing with. That's what you're dealing
Leon
with. Leon
don't have anywhere near those kind of assets.
No, of course they don't.
Not even close.
No, of course they don't. You know, I don't know who they bring in. I don't know who they bring in. Like I'm looking at that run of games. Like if they lose to Wolves and lose to us,
it's conceivable they'll lose to Wolves.
They're in the bottom 3. And then you look at the run they have. They have teams. Even if you throw Forest in there, that are still right up there. You look at Chelsea, who might have their eye on the title. You have Arsenal that definitely do. You've City there, a wounded animal. You know, they've so many teams in there that there's none of them there where you go, they might, they
might nick. So I think the Wolves game is massive for both sides.
It's absolutely colossal.
For both of them, because Gary O'Neill definitely needs a result. After that type of performance they had at the weekend, they definitely need a result of some sort. And after listening to what you were saying about Everton, then the more you look at the fixtures they've got coming up, they're sat on 11 points with no real. You wouldn't put a fiver on them getting points out of those fixtures after Wolves.
It's a horrendous run. Now, don't get me wrong, you're right. They have found a way at times to get a couple of wins. You're going to go, Jesus, well done. Tarek says it's 100 million that Leon need to raise by the end of the season, not the full 600. So it's obviously 100 million, but then the other 500 doesn't go away. Do you know the sort of way?
They still have to raise that down the line. So
yeah, North will rise again, says Texter's other club, Botafogo, became South American champions the other day. Tom Boland says he works for an Everton fan and he wants Potter. But like Graham Potter left Brighton because he'd seen the big shiny lights of Stamford Bridge and it was an unmitigated disaster. Why is Graham Potter risking it after being so long out of the game to go, do you know where I think we should go? Everton. It's the same situation as Moyes. If Graham Potter, who, by the way, got about fucking 20 million quid out of Chelsea, like, probably has no interest in being a football manager anymore.
No, not at all.
But if he's coming back, he's probably looking at, could go back to Brighton. You never know how it's going there.
I'm going to mention 2 clubs here now that I think will have one eye with managers looking over their shoulders. I think Unai Emery is on a dodgy run at the minute.
Yeah.
Look, what he's achieved at Villa in the last 2 seasons has been nothing short of fabulous. It is fantastic what he's done with them.
People were worried, though, weren't they, over the big European games mixed with the Premier League and the squad that he had.
5 wins in the Premier League this season. They're sat in 12th. And they're not just losing games. I mean, the Chelsea one at the weekend was a bit of a hiding. The other one, I think, definitely should be looking over his head is Newcastle. I think Eddie Howe is getting to that stage at Newcastle. He's not improving them. He's sat in 11th place at the minute. Look, you got to caveat all of this with how tight and congested the Premier League is at the minute. From Arsenal in second on 25, down to Aston Villa and Bournemouth even on 18 and 13th.
Yeah.
So you got to caveat that. But Newcastle's owners are not going to be happy sitting in mid-table.
No.
I was watching something earlier on Sky Sports News where Saudi Arabia have gerrymandered a way to get the World Cup in 2034. So in 10 years' time, Saudi Arabia are going to be hosting a World Cup. They're going to want a Newcastle side competing at the very top end of the Premier League in the next decade. And Eddie Howe is getting them nowhere near closer to that. For them to get to a place where they're going to be competing on a regular basis at the top end of the Premier League, they have to be qualifying for Europe on a regular basis. That means top 4 football, year in, year out, so they can really kick on. And they're not in that boat. And I think they've got the clout and the money to be able to go out and find a top-end manager. That's why I think the likes of Graham Potter, whether he's that guy or not, but I think that's what the likes of Graham Potter is holding out for. An Aston Villa job may come up. A Newcastle job might be on the offings at some point over the next 6 months. And Fulham are punching above their weight. He's doing a fantastic job as Fulham manager.
A Man City job may come up in the next 6 months.
The Man City job could definitely come up in the next 6 months.
But
if I'm Thomas Frank, sat at Brentford, I'm looking at what's going on around me and what he's doing at Brentford at the minute, where he's got him into the top 8, and Thomas Frank plays some good stuff. I think there could be some good jobs coming up before the end of this season, and definitely into the start of next season, because there's certain cycles that are coming to an end.
I agree, and that's why I think managers out there. I don't think you tie yourself to Everton for 6 months and let these possible jobs pass you by. Plus, even if those jobs don't come till next season, if it doesn't go well at Everton, people will go, "Well, he was at Everton and he was fucking." Why did he take the Everton job? Is that how much he believes in himself that he took Everton? It's so weird, and I think it's been a week. I think it has been a weekend of looking at. We haven't spoken about any of the football really, and we've just spoken about managers that are in trouble, because it felt like a weekend where you go, now this is where if you're putting a bet on, you're putting a bet on that a manager loses his job before the 15th of December. It's one of those. It feels like that's where it's going to go. And Tarek says Potter cannot take another job for a period of time, otherwise he loses out on payments from Chelsea. So he's sitting there, he's grand. He's absolutely grand.
I'll tell you now, if Potter decides to take a job on somewhere else, he's not going to be doing it for the minimum wage. Do you know what I mean? He's going in for good money, so he's not going to be worried too much. The other one comment that came in there was from Super Dizzle about Newcastle. The Newcastle are 4 points off top 4. How is grand? They beat Arsenal. They might get a result against us. Newcastle need to be in the top 4 in and around January. I mean, I watched the highlights, the extended highlights of the game against Palace, the draw at Palace at the weekend, and Palace left 2 points behind them.
Yeah,
Palace were
Newcastle had an
unlucky.
XG, and I hate XG, but I seen the XG stat come up today of 0.03.
Yeah, they're so inconsistent, and that's their biggest problem. Is they could turn up against us on Wednesday night, and Anthony Gordon could have the game of his life. Isak could miraculously return.
He is returning, apparently.
Do you know the way he went off, limping off with his dodgy hip? And if he's available to play against us, that tells me an awful lot about Alexander Isak.
Yeah,
he does
so
not. Do you know what he reminds me of? Ian Robin.
Yeah, well,
Ian Robin back in the day.
Carl Robinson says Isaac looks to be ready for Wednesday. Apparently, it was an impact injury he got on the weekend, and he should be back for Newcastle. I'm not bothered who's playing for Newcastle.
Yeah,
you know, whoever's playing. But listen, we're gonna go because we've gone over the hour. We're the best boys. We're nearly getting this hour thing down.
Nearly getting the hang
we're
of
not. But look, I've enjoyed that.
Yeah,
There's managers in trouble. I think it's going to be interesting over the next couple of weeks, especially as teams position themselves or fail to position themselves for this Christmas run that starts around the 18th of December. That's when it really kicks in, the 18th, the 22nd, the 26th, whatever, all these 4 games in 10 days or whatever it might be.
I got my Christmas hours today, so I'm from 18th of December to the 7th of January.
Jeez, you're off.
I'm off, yeah.
That's a fucking handy number you have. Paul says we didn't even talk about the Salah contract stuff that's come out. Well, we kind of did at the start. We just said relax, whatever it'll be, will be. Early Doors says, thanks guys, good show. Appreciate the chat. Take care and good luck with your game. Thanks to Early Doors Football TV, who was a West Ham fan by the looks of it. Hope we weren't too hard on West Ham. We just say it as we see it. But if you ever want to talk about it, give us a shout. You can come on and talk about it. That has been it. Don't forget our charities. They're in the description. If you want to, please donate. You can do that. And the one for Phil is also there as well. With regards to shows, member show tomorrow morning, the 30th. This morning was madness. Can't even remember what we were fucking talking about, but it definitely wasn't football. But if you're a member, please, 10 o'clock in the morning, come on. You don't need to be there for long. Jump in, give us something to talk about. And if you want to come on and talk with me, by the way, anyone wants to come on at 10 o'clock for half an hour to have a chat with me, to the members, let me know. You can jump on. Kev's done it the odd time. I think Kev's on work tomorrow, though. But if anyone wants to jump on, give us a shout. You know how to contact us. Give us a bell. Jump on. We get you set up, and you can chat with me for half an hour. It's only a bit of crack. All we do is have a cup of tea. That's all we do. So that's been it. Tomorrow night is Tuesday night. I don't know what we're doing tomorrow.
Look, actually, I just want to have a quick look.
Oh, we have a preview. We have a preview to Newcastle tomorrow night. We'll have the reaction to Newcastle on Wednesday night. We have Thursday. We will do a preview for the derby. Friday, we're doing a members Liverpool quiz sponsored by Paul Giovanni. That should be me and Emma. And then Saturday, we will have reaction to the derby. And then Sunday, we will have a little bit more, and we'll talk about other stuff as well. So we're flying. We will have a 30 tomorrow morning. We should have one Wednesday. We won't have one Thursday, and we might have one Friday. And if I can think of any other shows to bring you aside from them, because we've promised you a little bit more, you will get them as well. Everything for members, you get to see everything, right? Kevin on the quiz. No, Kev hates quizzes.
Fuck off.
But we have promised we're going to try bring you more shows. We brought you 2 this morning. But we're going to try do a little bit more of that. So leave it with us and we'll see how we get on. Like, subscribe, comment, hit the like button and become a member if you want. Thanks to Kev. Thanks to me. Thanks to the chat. I never use this software, so I forgot how to end it. But I'm going to have a go by pressing this big button up here that says end stream. Talk to you in a bit. Over and out.